The Love Boat will continue in a moment.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. For just $3 a month or more, you'll get exclusive access to the Word Balloon e-magazine, featuring transcriptions of some of my best conversations. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Full house tonight. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. All right, we got some newbies, so right off the bat, this is the American Caper crew, everybody. A fantastic new series from Dark Horse. It just debuted yesterday. We're going to get really into it. It's a really, really interesting project. Great story. They've been kind enough to send me the first 2 issues, and this is one to watch. And you know I'm a sucker for a good crime story. Well, we've got a couple crime veterans in the house. And we got the great former Vertigo and IDW Black Crown editor, Shelley Bond, who's kind of the team captain here as far as editing and everything. Good to see you, Shell.
Thank you.
Absolutely. From Stray Bullets, and a wonderful addition to the team. And you know you're going to get a good crime comic when you got David Lapham handling the art chores. Great to see you, David.
Good
Absolutely.
to see you.
Absolutely. And now 2 newbies, and you'll forgive me, guys. We got Laszlo and we got Chris. So please introduce yourselves to our home audience, ladies and gentlemen, please.
You go first, Chris. You
Oh, okay, fine. Hey, I'm Chris Anderson, cartoonist, and yeah, I don't know really what else to say at this point until we get into it.
Fair enough.
and I'm Laszlo. I'm the co-writer and producer on this comic. We started this comic. Dan Hauser and I started this company after leaving Rockstar Games, and said we wanted to do games and animation and audio fiction, but we really wanted to do a comic book. So it came out yesterday, and I went to my local comic book store and saw it on the shelf, and I really never ever thought this would happen to me as a longtime comic book reader.
Well, congratulations, man. I'm going to play the trailer. Shelley was nice enough to give me this wonderful trailer. It's on YouTube, everybody. So if you blink and miss it, don't worry. You can find it under American Caper. So let's take a look here. I'll be like Johnny Carson. I think we have a clip. Let's take a look at American Caper from Dark Horse Comics.
Verona, Wyoming, a small town like any other. A land of hunter and hunted. Apex predators and regulations just waiting to be broken. A degenerate lawyer. A Mormon hitman. A red-pilled housewife. Escaped convicts in love. A Mexican beauty queen on the run. A Wall Street billionaire turned cowboy. Dreamers lost in fantasy, and a maniac hell-bent on revenge. The new crime fiction comic book series from the mind of Dan Hauser. American Caper. Issue number 1 in stores now from Absurd Ventures and Dark Horse Comics.
the only one
There
who
you go.
started dancing the moment that trailer started? Come on,
We
David.
had a
You were
we had a
doing
whole
some
conversation.
chat?
We had a whole conversation about what music would be right for American Caper, and it's set in Wyoming. It was like, oh, we could go for sort of Western stuff, and we could go for like spaghetti Western thing, and then we landed on funk, and it just fits.
Come on. Absolutely, man. Crime and
Yep,
funk go
that means
hand in hand.
caper.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is great. So Laszlo, as you were saying earlier and everything, what you guys are doing with this whole project, and that you wanted, back, and I remember literally about 20 years ago, you'd hear from these media companies and go, we're a transmedia company. And it's like, yeah, that sounds cool. But given your background and Dan's background as well, I mean, you guys really are in that business. So, I first of all, the comic is great. You were kind enough, as I said, to let me read the first 2 issues. And it really does, you set up this new town, Verona, Wyoming is where everything takes place, correct?
Correct. And when Dan and I worked together on the games at Rockstar, we started together in 2001 on Grand Theft Auto 3, and we worked on Red Dead Redemption and Max Payne 3 and Bully, and all of those games are about world building. So it's a lot of the same sensibility in that what are the businesses in the background? What are the billboards? What are the who are the fake celebrities? Who are, because you're building literally a universe out of thin air. So having done that for 24 years, it channeled into comics really well. But we quickly learned that comics are a different type of storytelling. In the Grand Theft Auto universe, besides this huge immersive cinematic universe and cinematic storytelling, we had in-game radio, we had in-game television, there was a fake internet that you could surf. There's billboards, and you would see a billboard while driving down the street in the game, and then you'd hear a radio ad for the same product at some point. You'd see a TV commercial. And so we knew about immersive storytelling there, but Dan wrote the first script of American Caper, and then we brought in Shelley, and she put together this dream team of David Lapham and Chris Anderson. And I remember the conversation that we had where she goes, I've got this idea of putting these two together. And so we did an art test. I mean, we know David's amazing, and Chris's work is amazing, but I was like, what happens when you mix, peanut butter and chocolate, or, one of those sort of like weird culinary things that you wouldn't, or something that you wouldn't normally think of, is like putting these two together, and it's just, it works. He'll take a script that I consider, because you're always insecure as a creator, that is a 7.5, and Dave takes it to a 9.9, and then with his layouts and the ideas that he and Shelley kick in, we have these amazing pencils, and then Chris must have had a horrible upbringing, because the dark gritty stuff that he brings to these scenes, I'm like, damn, that looks incredible.
Well, I have to just jump in and say that, to me, that's the greatest thing about being an editor. And everybody still has like a misunderstanding what it means to be an editor in comics. And most people think it's just being a traffic cop or keeping the trains running, making sure that the schedules are running smoothly. That is an important part of being an editor, but by no means does it even crack the surface of what it means to really edit, to be a legit editor. So to me, when someone asks me to come into a project, especially when there isn't a monthly team on the books, I just want to take a look at the pitch, and then I will go for my gut instinct. And when I heard that the book was called American Caper, first of all, capers are my favorite type of crime fiction stories. But when someone says crime, there's only one name that I think of. Now, a lot of people will say that, David's wife is probably sending me checks every month. But I truly think that David is the greatest American storyteller of my generation. I'm a little older than everybody except John here, but I think it's true. Now, when Stray Bullets came out in 1995, I fell to my knees and I said, this is why I'm going to be a comics lifer. So, yeah, of course, first instinct was David Lapham. However, I know he's a busy guy. And I also believe that we can only elevate the art form when we bring new things to the table. And I really felt like it was important if Laszlo and Dan really wanted to do a monthly comic in the spirit of 100 Bullets, Invisibles, Fables, have a book that people can count on every 30 days. I felt like we needed to bring someone in. And I was really conscious about putting David on the front end because his storytelling is second to none. Laszlo, you said he brings American Caper up to a 9.9. I disagree. I think he brings American Caper up to a 14.6. Again, his wife may or may not be sending me checks, so leave it at that. But I will say that Chris Anderson's indie work really impressed me. And I thought, wow, they are both very strong storytellers in their own right, but there was something extra peculiar and intense about Chris's work that I thought would capture the absurdity in American Caper and in Absurd Ventures. And sure enough, I think it clicked pretty much from the start.
So Chris, tell me about some of your other art because, like Shell said, I'm certainly aware of David's stuff, and also I really do appreciate your guys' combination. We have a process page that we'll show, but it kind of in a very different way. It's kind of like when Bill Sienkiewicz was inking Mike Norton's stuff on Green Arrow, where it didn't look like Sienkiewicz, it didn't look like Norton. Now I don't know your style, but I appreciate your inks because it is slightly removed from what we normally expect from a David Lapham comic. So tell me about your background first, and then we can get into the process page if you want.
Yeah, I mean, comics were in my bones from a very early age. It was, I just had always known that this is what I was going to do, is be a comic book creator. And, I grew up reading comics in the early 90s, and up until the end of the 90s, and then, discovered that I could play music and all this other stuff, moved to California, played in bands, kind of stopped drawing really altogether and reading comics for like 10 years. And oddly, I think that was a good thing because I had developed this style that wasn't really good yet, but I had this sort of style that was kind of derivative of the stuff that was coming out, from the early Image guys and things like that. And then stopping for that long and then coming back to it sort of made me not be influenced by all the other stuff that was coming out, during that time. And so I think I just went into it purposely with blinders on so that I could sort of develop my own style. And Lost Angels was the first book that I released. And then I did several other anthologies and things like that. And then did a lot of work in wrote and drew in Heavy Metal Magazine and Creep Show and things like that. And then released my other books, Chaotic Neutral and Spectral Showcase of Fear. And that is about where you find me. I'm working on a book right now called Three-Headed Pigman also, which is my own thing. But and then I got the call from Shelley and I was like, it's go time. Let's do this.
David, have you had other people ink you? And what is that reaction when you see another artist kind of, put their spin on what you lay down?
Oh, I think it's super cool. Yeah. It doesn't, I usually do my own like soup to nuts kind of art, but it has, it does happen sometimes, and it's always great because it's exciting to see because what you're going to get back is not what you expected. As a matter of fact, I have another project that will be coming out next year sometime where a portion of it Bill Sienkiewicz inked over me, which is pretty cool. But on this, like, it sort of goes a step further with Chris and I, because I'm just, I mean, you'll see the process page, but I'm putting it down, and he's not just doing inks on it. He's putting his style over it, and and then bringing this whole level of absurdity, really, to the story, which really it needs it, because that's that's what it is. It's totally insane book. It's reality, but heightened into this. It's I don't want to say satire, but because it's serious, but it's also hysterically funny and surreal and over the top, and that's and it needs that, and that's what Chris can do.
In addition to amazing texturizing, if I might just interject and squash David's words, but I think, David will say, "Oh, I just do the thumbs and I do the rough pencils." Well, David Lapham's rough pencils are exquisite, and you can print them, and you can frame them and consider them gold. But what Chris does when he comes in, he does another round of penciling. He tightens the pencils, and then he throws down some inks that are just crazy amazing.
Let's show the process while you're describing it. Yeah.
Let's walk through it. Okay. Basically, everything starts with Laszlo and Dan. They submit the first script. Right. Basically, I throw a little bit of red ink at it, and then Laszlo and I talk about it a bit, and then we send it to David, and this is what we get back. You might want to go to a 2-page view on the top.
Am I able to do that?
So you can see basically what happens. We do a couple of rounds on the rough script with Laszlo. And if you want to scroll back, basically what you see is part of David's thumbnails that, he'll say they're super loose, but the bones are there. I mean, David is killer with foundation, because not just for the art, but I think we all know that David knows story like nobody's business. So it's really.
It's still. It's sort of.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think Shelley's PDF is a little busted.
Yeah, it's my fault.
It's really not. I think if you try it on you have it on a 2-page view.
You tried that; it wasn't working.
Yeah, you see how it's because it did it with the cover show. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll send you another. I'll send you another PDF.
Okay.
And you guys can talk about me while I do that.
One of the things
here we'll come away from the PDF until Shell resends it. So go ahead, guys.
It's pretty interesting. I think it's interesting. It shows.
One of the things that's great about David's thumbs, they're very, very rough, but he puts a lot of notes on the sides for Dan and I to read, saying, I think we could make this scene a little longer from a storytelling perspective. I'm currently working on some dialogue fixes for issue 8, and it's because Dave will add some panels and sometimes a whole page, and it's like, oh, we're going to need some dialogue for this, and so it's. The thing that's been great, this is our first comic. Dan worked on Max Payne 3 comic when that game came out, just a small thing, but actually diving into a 12-issue series and being able to collaborate with Shelley and Dave, and that they give honest feedback on the script. They point out, we've kind of lost the thread on this character. The worlds that Dan and I build, there are a lot of characters, and they're all very broken. And we follow from issue 1, there's this van crash that has some escaped convicts that hijacked a van full of migrants that are getting smuggled into America. And that crashes between these two houses. and you follow all the characters in each of those houses. You follow the people that were in the van, and it might be several issues later, and a character that was just in the background of that van is suddenly in the forefront. And I love that kind of storytelling, which makes you want to go back to previous issues and be like, oh, that's right. We really wanted to make a comic that showed how a lot of different broken people. Dan came up with all the characters that you saw in those Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption games, and we like flawed characters that are doing bad things for possibly the right reasons, but just tragic characters that are on all sides of the spectrum. This guy's a Mormon. This person's gone right-wing crazy. This person's gone left-wing crazy. But to feel compassion for them and follow them on their journey, but also to see what takes people down the wrong path. I think it's why shows like Breaking Bad were so amazing, is that you can see that journey for people, and also Grand Theft Auto was very much a satire on America, and we knew we're working on games, we're working on other projects, but we knew American Caper is a comic book, and people are always like, is there going to be a video game? Is there going to be a video game or TV show? It's like, we're making a comic book,
Okay.
like that's what we were focused on. And
it's one of the reasons why I took the job, Laszlo. I mean, I looked Dan in the eye and I said, at its purest form, is this story a comic book story? He said, yes, it is. We wanted to make a really cool comic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I took him at his word. And it must be said that, Laszlo is giving all the props to everybody else here, whether it's Chris or David. But the truth of the matter is that, to me, it was a no-brainer to bring in David to not only draw part of the book, but also just be critical in the stage before drawing, which is, I consider editing, frankly. And of course, my husband tapped me on the shoulder as he heard me flapping my gums about this and said, you just talked yourself out of the job, because he knew exactly what I was hoping David would do, which is come in as early as possible and lend us his supreme storytelling chops. And it's a testament to Dan and Laszlo that their egos didn't get in the way, because, come on, you guys, you are superstars in the gaming world. You could have. And I have been so proud to put my name on this book and to continue working with you guys because of the fact that you get it, that that comics is the ultimate collaboration. The scripts are liquid. We pass them from person to person. The editor is quote unquote in charge. I've got the biggest can of red ink, but ultimately we have the same goal, and it's to tell the best story, no matter whose ego we, hurt or destroy in the process, because it's the story that matters and how it reads in its purest form on paper. Mic drop.
Yeah. And, Dan will write the first pass on the script. I'll go through and add some dialogue, do an edit, possibly add some scenes. I send it to Shelley and David. They come back with notes, and then I'll go to Dan and say, hey, they really think this scene needs to be bumped up. We think we need to, rather than saving what's going to happen in the next issue, we need to bring it earlier. And it's, the great thing about working with Chris and with David as artists is that they're humble, and they bring their honest opinion to the work, and it becomes a collaboration. I've had two conversations this week, one with a video game company. It's an indie video game company that is their game they just released is selling like bananas, and chatted with them, and we're having a conversation about games. And the first thing they said, American Caper, the art looks amazing. And David Lapham, how did you get him? And then today I'm meeting with some top executives at Warner Brothers. And they're like, yeah, we want to chat with you guys about the games you're doing and the animation. But they go, American Caper, it looks amazing. How did you get David Lapham? And I was like, I don't know. Like, we got Shelley, and then she got Chris and David, and it just like I picked up
the phone and said,
Nice.
Lapham, I'm
That was
busy.
the exact one. Mine went brown.
the banana phone.
I'm sorry to say, guys, that Shell, that other PDF, it's going to be the same result. I've been testing it as Laszlo was talking.
I sent
I'm
you
gonna show
two.
it. No, I know, buddy, and I tried them both. So yeah, unfortunately, but regardless, and I know we're only seeing half a page here, but we do get to a better. You can tell though, we can approximate.
I'm going to try one more thing. You
So
keep talking.
yeah, well, you
Listen.
can see.
I mean, honestly, but go ahead, David. Yeah, if you want to talk us through.
Yeah, I
while
was
we're
gonna say
playing.
you can sort of see half, like on the on the left there.
Yeah.
You have the thumbnails, half a page of thumbnails, and you
Yeah.
can see where it's just breaking it down more of a stick figure, block figure type of thing. And I'm pulling the dialogue from the script, and sometimes I'll suggest small changes in the dialogue just based on because how it visually lays on the page, you know. And then that goes back to Laszlo and Dan, and then they'll come back with notes, and that's where we can make changes and really solidify the story. And then on the right, you'll see then I'll go to these the pencils, and that's what I pencil there. And that's sort of at that point, like usually there's not any changes because we've worked everything out in the thumbs, and and then it goes to Chris, and I think we have two stages of what kind of Chris does. You see how he comes in with his pencils,
There you go,
and gives it that his style on it, and then he does all this like this insane inks with all the lush textures, and
I'm a big Topi guy, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there's almost am I nuts, guys? Because again, sometimes I'm kind of wrong with my art instincts, but almost a Bob Fingerman sort of kind of crazy extreme. Chris, when you put your inks on it and stuff, I mean, David's always got grit, but you know, it just feels like the texture.
I think I know what you mean. Like there's almost like has almost like the grit of like an underground comic.
Yeah,
like a caricature-esque kind of thing onto it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this page, I think this page is sort of more that than anything else is a good example of that. I really pushed her crazy by making those eyes really big, you know, and you know, David made them pretty big. I made them bigger. I just, you know, exaggerated some things here and there, and you know, David will send me I'll get these David's pencil layouts, and then it's my job to kind of put my skin of my style over the top of it. So especially in the beginning here, when around issue 6, you'll see I switch to drawing digitally just to make the process go faster. But these were traditional, and so I have to print them out in Blue Line, but I print them out so low that I can hardly see what David is doing, because you know the nuance of David's expressions and stuff like that. I need to capture that.
Sure.
But everything else I kind of need to like forget that David even drew it at all and just go over the top of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it was tricky to figure out how we were going to do this in the beginning, but it's really crazy. At this point, it's hard to tell where, for me anyway, where David ends and I begin, or I begin and David ends. We've just sort of like become this whole different thing.
Well, I have to say that Chris, you jumped in with both feet and you were fearless about it. I feel like it must have been a bit daunting for you when I asked you to try the sample, because, you know, I've said this many times. It's a masterclass for everybody who is working on American Caper or reading as a fan. This is a masterclass with David Lapham, full stop. And so I didn't want to be Chris Anderson, although I've been quoted as saying that I would crawl through glass and jump through sheets of fire to ink David Lapham's work. although he hasn't let me yet. So if I couldn't do it, I'm glad that Chris actually stepped up and showed us what it would look like. And I'm grateful that Dan and Laszlo agreed that it was just a knockout team.
You said that
Yeah.
to me really early on, and I was like, Shelly, why are you saying that to me? Now I'm thinking about it. I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about it before.
No need.
I
No
mean,
need.
from a long time comic book fan to when Shelley's like, I've got these two amazing artists, and I just every script I would send over, I'm scared to death. And the ones that I was like, yeah, we nailed it, we did this, and then I come back with Shelley's notes are in one color and David's notes are in another color, and I would go through and just get completely deflated, and I was like, I'm an imposter. This is terrible. But that page is a perfect example of what these two amazing artists bring to this book, because we've got this character Marnie, who the internet has driven crazy, and you see her in bed. If you zoom in on her in bed,
I'll try
she's sleeping with an assault rifle. Like her husband is staring at the ceiling with his eyes open, and she's over there spooning an assault rifle. And it's just amazing how I've seen over the years, reading so many amazing comic books, where you see that the writers put in really copious art notes and ideas, and we definitely throw some of those in, but by no means, there's like 5 or 6 pages we don't really have a lot of art notes sometimes. And this team just really brings that to life. A woman who the internet has driven crazy, sleeping with an assault rifle. But we show the madness of all the characters. And Verona, Wyoming, this fictional town, we knew that we wanted to set something in a new city. We've done satires of Los Angeles, and actually with San Andreas, we did it was a spoof of Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Las Vegas. New York with Grand Theft Auto 4 and with Grand Theft Auto 3, and Miami. And so the Rocky Mountains, we felt were ripe for a story. I've been to Wyoming several times, and Montana, and it's an interesting place where you have folks that have been there for a long time and want to be left alone, and you have all these rich maniacs coming there to ski and snowboard and buy up ranches and pretend to be cowboys. And so, and there's other themes that Dan and I have discussed through the scripts, which is how America is basically a country founded by lawyers for lawyers, and America is about real estate and snake oil and monetizing misery, frankly. And that's so one of the through lines is people on their phones. These things are making us insane, and I've got liberal friends that are insane, and conservative friends that have been driven insane, and it's no longer about sitting around and discussing our differences and going like, you know what, you've got a good point. It's like, I just want to consume as much internet rubbish as possible, and go nuts till 2 a.m. on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. And so, we started this comic off with this storyline about bulldozing pristine American gorgeous areas to build exclusive luxury golf resorts, and to make something authentic. That's the other thing I love, when people I want to go do something authentic. I want to see the world. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna go to Epcot. It's like, nah. That's so
It's
you
true.
know, we wanted to make a crime drama. Dan's known for his gritty crime dramas that are also satires. I mean, that's what he and I have been collaborating on for years. But it's also a family comedies. I mean, these two families living next to each other, the degenerate lawyer with his red-pilled wife, his angry son who is just, you know, consumed with video games and is becoming more and more isolated, and then their daughter who's gone off to Brooklyn and has gone completely off the reservation. She's got a mohawk, and you know, in the first issue she goes off on this diatribe about everything she's mad at, and it's like, wow. But also just the comedy of there's a lot of funny characters like Marty, who is the Wall Street billionaire who's Dan and I have several characters that we've discussed. These people that get really rich and then are like, I got to figure out how not to die, right? So they get into like biohacking, HGH, they're in a cryo chamber. I mean, Chris and Dave did this amazing piece of art that I don't remember which of the early issues it's in, but it's got Marty, who's half naked with his big white cowboy hat, coming out of a cryo chamber where he's just been freezing himself half to death because it's going to extend his life. But you know, you see that with these Silicon Valley nut jobs.
Wait, is this the splash page where David got to draw the scrotum? I mean, somebody
No.
needs to bring it up.
No, that was way back.
No, that's
But thanks for mentioning that.
Listen,
Two or three,
somebody had to bring up the scrotum. Can I also just say one other thing, Laszlo? Not to interrupt you, but we all know I do that anyway. I'm in it for the hypocrites. You know, you've explained quite a bit about the plot, and one thing to add to what you were saying, we've got two neighbors who are very different, and so Laszlo, you should tell us a little bit about the Orson character in a minute.
Sure.
But
And his family.
what I love most of all is that you can't trust anyone. You want to see everybody get what's coming to them. And yet there is a hero in this story, and you're going to love her. Back to you, Leslie.
Well, there's going to be several heroes at the end. If we we're working on 12 at the moment. And,
okay,
you know, say this is the first arc. We have plans for other arcs if Dark Horse will have us, and if, you know, people are digging what we're doing. But yeah, hypocrisy, and I think if anyone says that they don't have some level of hypocrisy, they're a liar. Dan loves to point out to me that I went through a period where I was a vegetarian, and then my wife would fly out of town for work, and I would go to Costco and buy a huge thing of frozen chicken wings and just be pounding chicken wings and beer on the couch and playing video games. And chicken wings are also
like a character in this book. David, are you thinking, and Chris, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
William's wing obsession is a Laszlo thing.
And you know, also the sort of double lives about how they say, you know, William, this degenerate lawyer, did all the right things. He went to law school, and then he ended up working on these law cases. He moved to Wyoming to open, you know, to be the Wyoming wing of this law firm that's, you know, in Brooklyn and Tampa and Reno. But his clients, who you meet several of his clients, are all out of their tree.
Yeah.
So and
crazy billionaires playing cowboy and other things.
And you know, but you hear that, you know, there's a lot of people with regret about, and even successful people, like you've got this, you know, this guy who's made billions and he's playing cowboy, and then you've got people who are struggling financially, and everybody's got a level of regret, and people that have everything they could ever need are unhappy. And we've had several characters and stories over the 2.5 decades collaborating together. It's fascinating to see people who have everything they could ever need but are miserable. but then also one of the through lines of American Caper is people that are pretending to be something else. And cosplay, not the amazing cosplay that I saw at my first Comic-Con, which was San Diego this summer when we announced American Caper, but these cosplay experiences where you dress up as a cowboy and you're in pretend gunfights, and this theme of the angry teenager says it, William says it, other people say it, that they want to be a hero and they just don't know how
to do it. Yeah. Well, also, honestly, man, I love that you chose Wyoming as a backdrop, because it has, just as a social observer, that whole dichotomy of the rich people that move out there to get away from it all and bulldoze to, whatever, get their ranch. And then, like you said, the old homesteaders that have been there forever. How the hell did they deal with Henry Winkler? No disrespect to the Fonz. I love the Fonz. But, I know he's got a place in Wyoming, for example. And it's like, yeah, how does old Gus, who's been there, generations and stuff, deal with the fact that, Henry Winkler's ranch is next to his now, or miles away, but they see each other in town or whatever. Yeah, it's got to be weird. And I think really play up the weirdness in a great way. And yeah, man, the neighbors, these are two very different families. And Orson is a very interesting head of his Mormon family.
So that van crashes between the two families, and we've talked about the lawyer and his wife who was a super left-wing person early on, and then went the other way. But then the other family next door that also had some of their property destroyed by this hijacked van is this perfect Mormon family. The wife is gorgeous. Everybody's fantasizing about her except for her husband, the religious through line of this, and the Orson, going to his church elder and being blackmailed to do these awful things. I grew up in a very, very conservative environment in Oklahoma, and in one of it might have been the first mega church. It was so conservative that we were told that we couldn't watch the Smurfs because they practice magic.
Sure.
And my answer was always like, there's only one girl in the village, they've got to be swapping her around. Shouldn't we be upset about that? And
nice.
And didn't want us to watch Cheers because it was set in a bar.
Well, sure.
We weren't allowed to watch movies. If you dance, it brings the devil into your soul. And so people always say, like, what movie?
Footloose.
Footloose.
Oh, sure, of course.
But I wouldn't know because we weren't allowed to watch it.
Yeah.
So I escaped. Comic books were my escape during that period, and as well as fantasy novels and science fiction. And I've told this story. The comic book store that I would go to and spend my allowance and then later my minimum wage money that I was making because I lied about my age to work at a grocery store. I would go spend all my money at New World Comics in Oklahoma City, and I went there this summer. And said to them, I hadn't been in there in a million years, and said, hey, me and my friend and this amazing team are making a comic book, and I would love to have a poll list with you, which I haven't had since, before I left for college. And my father will come pick up my comic book for me. And he went there yesterday and picked up the #1 with all the variants. So, and I was a bit nervous about him reading it because he's a cop, or was a cop. But he was when my career went from I work in radio to I'm working on these games where you steal cars, and by the way, there's prostitutes that you can like virtually sleep with, and all this. He was a little put off, but he saw that we were satirizing things, and that it wasn't some mass shooting simulator. And then later on, actually in Grand Theft Auto 3, my father is one of the callers on the radio who's
That's great.
who's calling in with his very redneck accent, talking about how delicious squirrels are. And then he was a sheriff in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh wow.
We need to get his poll quote on
Yes.
the paperback. I'm dying to know what he thinks of the series. You
That's
have to
a good idea.
listen. That's
That's
amazing.
Yeah, that's
I love
hilarious, man. No,
But
I love it, Zaslow. Honestly, Laszlo, excuse me, Zaslow. That's I'm thinking of David Zaslow. I think our broadcast backgrounds betray us.
Exactly. But it's been. I can't believe that we've gone to thumbs and soon to go to pencils on 11, and I get, as someone who's I'm in production on these video games that have budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars, but the fear is always like, oh my God, somebody's about to not have any work to do. And I realized with comic books, and Shelley's always reminding me, she's like, Lapham's running out of pages, Chris is running out of pages, and it's just, the text messages on Saturday morning. I mean, she's relentless. So it's like,
Yeah.
so get in there and get the script done.
But don't think for a minute that Laszlo isn't sending text messages to David and to me on a Sunday with notes and questions. So it's 24/7, and that's
Good.
the beauty of a monthly.
This is everything other than when we do like Hero and Maria, my partner and I do Straight Bullets, or we do our own comics. So that's a very close collaboration. This is like a true collaboration. Usually, like, it goes through the editor. You get sent a script, and you execute the script, send it in, and all the parts are compartmentalized. And we really all do work back and forth, and make changes, and we're far enough ahead too. We've even gone back and made changes on earlier issues,
Okay.
when we needed to, and stuff like that. So it's really special. I hope that comes through, because I think it's a true collaboration with no egos.
It's very textured, and honestly, here let's bring the process pages back up again, because we haven't talked about Lee Lowridge. Lowridge or Lowridge, Shell?
Lowridge.
Thank you. And another great comic book legend that is lending his coloring talents here. Beautiful stuff, man.
You can remember it if you're so inclined to look through your record collection and pick up David Bowie's Low album. Lowridge, baby. Gotta throw a Bowie reference in there just for you, John.
Sure, Shell. Well, it's no Brian Ferry, but all right, I'll take your word for it.
We will always have Brian Ferry if we have enough time. If we have enough time today, we have to go back to the Brian Ferry.
She makes me tell my Brian Ferry story. Laszlo, what we were talking earlier about your radio actually off the air and everything. So you used to host a national radio show?
Oh God, no! Thank goodness.
Or were you involved in it? What did you do in national radio?
Well, so it started in radio in Columbia, Missouri, where I went to journalism school, and then moved to New York to work for an alternative radio rock network called the Underground Network, based at WDRE, which is like a famous flagship new wave station.
Fantastic.
It was back in the 80s, but I joined them in 95, and then my program director, a few months after I joined in 95, he goes, "You know a lot about this internet, right?" And I said, "Yeah, my father was, after he got done being an undercover drug narc, he somehow became in charge of all the computers and phones for the Oklahoma City Police Department, as you do." And so I grew up in computer rooms on the weekends with the turning tapes and all the blinky Star Trek lights.
Yeah, the old computer world, the analog computer world, if you will.
And he had a computer at home in the late 70s that was basically like an electric typewriter, and you would put the phone into a coupler and dial into Kansas City, and instead of having a computer screen, it would print everything out on paper. And so I was playing internet computer games in the late 70s, and he bought me a very expensive TRS-80 computer when those
Hilarious.
first came out. And I was on BBSs, and I was on, I was on the internet before anybody I knew was. So, and programming computer games that you would type in all the code from a magazine. So he said, you know a lot about this internet. I was like, why don't you go on twice a day and just do these reports about like the internet and computer games and things like that. Started doing that in '95, these short features, and I was quickly on 150 radio stations with that around the world.
Wow.
And then ended up doing a comedy talk radio show that started on K-Rock New York and ended up on Sirius XM on the Opie and Anthony channel.
Oh, funny.
But it's because of radio that I met a guy surfing in Long Beach, New York, because I was always in the water bodyboarding and body surfing. And I met a guy, I'd seen him out there before, and we were both complaining about having to go to Los Angeles because the waves were amazing in New York. There was a hurricane offshore, and the waves on the wave reports were garbage in LA. And I said, why are you going? He's like, oh, me and my buddy started a video game company. And I said, oh, I do this, syndicated radio feature reviewing games and, talking about internet stuff. He's like, well, you should come into our office and do a story on us because we're going to try to do something new, video games for adults. Because before Grand Theft Auto 3, games were for kids. And,
Leisure Suit Larry?
and Dan and Sam Hauser had this idea of like, let's make games for adults. And they were huge movie fans, and they loved crime movies and mafia movies. And so they said, I came into the office to just do a short piece on them. And I met Dan Hauser for the first time, and he said, hey, we're making some fake radio stations in the game, and we want to make fun of American radio. And I was like, well, right off the top of my head, here's some ideas on how to make fun of how ridiculous it is.
Oh, yeah.
And then over that summer, we wrote DJ dialogue and fake commercials and all of that. And that came out and was Grand Theft Auto 3 and was, the gameplay and the third person 3D world that you could explore and do anything you want while driving around listening to this comedy satire radio was how it all started. And
That's great.
I then over the next few years saw the writing on the wall, and I mean, I probably should have done a podcast at that point, but video games were so fun and world building, and that's what I love about comics is it's very much like making video games in that you have a bunch of talented people from different disciplines, Chris, David, Shelley, Lee, Picos, that are all coming together, that without one of those, everything's screwed.
Sure.
But you put them all together and you've made this immersive storytelling experience. And that's what's been great about American Caper.
Are you able to take your video game audience and alert them? Because that's what I always love is when some group of people from another discipline, as far as fans, suddenly discover, that's been the great thing I think about crime comics is a lot of crime novel fans have slowly in the last 30 years or so. Shell and David, would you agree that it seems like we're getting a lot of longtime book readers that suddenly are like, hey man, I never knew about Straight Bullets. I never knew about Brubaker and then Sean doing Criminal and some of the other things that are out there and stuff. I don't, but yeah, is that the opportunity is there? Are you letting them know that you're making this comic book as well as, the video games you guys have made in the past?
Oh yeah. We've got an established fan base from our work at Rockstar, and it's been great seeing the response. What I really love to see is people posting, I've never bought a comic book, I've never been in a comic book store,
Yep.
but I'm going to go check this out.
Yep.
The other thing that I really have loved is when we do signings. At San Diego Comic-Con, we did 2 signings and they had to turn people away on both of them. People show up that are fans of Chris and they're having him sign stuff, and people show up who are fans of Shelley and bringing her work. People show up for David stuff and are having him sign.
Yeah.
Marguerite this weekend had people there, and it's exciting to have these people that have all had very different, varied careers. That people are excited that they're on this book, and but also huge fans of their previous work. So
I get it. Here, a comment from Carrie. Carrie's another podcaster. Actually, you guys should talk to her on her Splash Pages podcast. Leisure Suit Larry was hilarious. Sierra was so snarky. If you look at the moose's head in the wall at the bar, it says that they were lazy and stole from King's Quest. It was stolen from King's Quest. That's hilarious. So clearly another fan. That's great. No, I'm honestly, guys, like I said, you were kind enough to send me the first 2 issues. It's wonderful. And it has that video game vibe of this world, and you immediately are immersed. But yeah, you guys introduce a lot of characters, and I'm glad you have 12 issues to explore them. I think it's a great opportunity. But yeah, David, I mean, are you? Well, the book just came out, so yeah you haven't really. You haven't had that chance. Yeah, yesterday. So you haven't had a chance to really find any new fans that might be aware of your stuff now because of
Yeah, and it's a long. There's like the immediacy of like it just came out. We have to, get everybody before next Wednesday when new books come out. But the books are also their books, so they stay. It'll be here, a year from now and 30 years from now. So,
no, absolutely, yeah. Is there a plan, Laszlo, in terms of eventually turning American Caper into the other media that you've played around in and stuff? Because again, I love, it seems like now, as opposed to when you guys first started doing Grand Theft and everything, that really the rest of media has evolved. And audio drama has never been more sophisticated here in America. The rest of the world already knew about it. But that's the thing. It feels like the other platforms have finally evolved the way video games have. And, so that opportunity is there. I don't know when you want to pull the trigger on it.
Well, and I think Chris and David would agree with this, is you can have something that is amazing storytelling and looks incredible. Hollywood feels like it's trapped in the past. I'm surprised that this town, because I was in New York for 25 years and we came to Los Angeles to start Absurd Ventures because all the video game talent is, frankly, between San Diego and Vancouver.
Sure.
This town is scared to make new, interesting things. They want stuff that they release to be, it's like this, but that, it's
safe.
Like,
yes,
right. It's like Seinfeld, but mixed with the Wire or whatever. And they're scared to do things. And also the process is so long. It takes, 6 years of development to make anything. And when you work in video games, and what I'm learning now in comics, you just start making the stuff, straight bullets. You just make the stuff. Chris's amazing work. You just start making the stuff. And with American Caper, Dan and I did the same thing that we've always done. We just start making it. We didn't have a publisher, right? We found Shelley and she put this team together and we just started making it. And if for anything, and we never have had the conversation of let's make this to make a TV show or to make a video game. It was purely to explore this medium because Dan and I, through 25 years, have never started a creative project and had a conversation about money and if it could make a bunch of money, because the mantra of Absurd Ventures and indeed when Dan and I have worked together over the years is make cool shit and it will come. And if you look at what everybody else is doing in games or television or film, then you're just going to get, channeled into what they're doing. Dan has written of the top 5 selling video games of all time. He's written, and creative directed 3 of those. And he's very strict about, like, when we were working on Grand Theft Auto, he refused to watch The Sopranos. He did not want it to influence his sort of mafia and crime stories at all.
I get it.
And so, after we stopped working on Grand Theft Auto, he watched Sopranos and was like, this is a damn good show. But, I like that we had several issues in the can. We went to Marvel. We went to DC. I spoke with Jim Lee. They were like, this would be great for the relaunch of Vertigo. We spoke with Image. We spoke with Skybound. And we spoke with Dark Horse. And, they're like, oh, you've got several issues that you've already made. It's like, yeah, we're just making this thing. And Dark Horse seemed like the perfect place to support our creator-led efforts. And they've been super supportive, and it's been a fantastic journey. I'm scared to death over the whole thing, because it's like, first off, I'm working with an all-star team of Chris and David and Shelley, but hopefully people like it. I mean, I was told today it's sold out in Ireland, so I like.
Hey, that's
a good sign.
And really, Ireland's great. It's a great comics country, absolutely. So that's a nice compliment.
We've had a lot of interest in international territories. The projects we've worked on were huge in the UK and France and Germany and Italy, and so we've had a lot of interest from those territories, which is exciting. So.
Well, Shell knows from Vertigo and IDW and stuff too. Listen, we're all about superheroes here in the States as far as comic books go, mostly. David obviously had his success with Stray Bullets, but really it is the other genres. And certainly your story, I mean, the fact that it's called American Caper certainly helps. But that's the thing. I think your book is so idiosyncratically a satire of America. I'm sure the rest of the world is like, let's make fun of America. Absolutely. Let's get more of this stuff. But Shell, wouldn't you think, didn't in the Vertigo years and Black Crown years and stuff, I'm hoping your sound is back. But didn't it feel like, it was the other genres that did well internationally?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And believe me, when I first read the pitch, I was convinced that had I still been with the original Vertigo, American Caper would have definitely been under my umbrella, which is why I came on board. And also just because I think it's important to mention, when I came onto the project, Laszlo was right in saying that he and Dan had already written many scripts. And Simon Bisley was a very integral part of the early days. He did so many of the character development pieces, and he's one of the incredible variant cover artists on the series. But I want to jump and I want to throw in a question about someone who hasn't been mentioned. And it's a character who has been described as a Mexican beauty queen on the run. David Lapham, you're smiling. I'm going to throw this one to you because the character of Eva is so badass, and we haven't really talked about her. So I want you to kind of share your thoughts on this incredible character who I think takes over and runs the show from where I'm sitting.
She's a terrific character. She's one of the people that come out of the aforementioned van crash, and she's sort of another element that brings a whole world of trouble into the series, because she's connected to these cartels in Mexico, who, if they thought that the crazy billionaires and the Mormon hitman and the shady lawyers were like one level of trouble in Verona, then we have this whole criminal empire of another country that eventually will work its way to this little town. But yeah, she sort of steals every scene that she's in, Eva, and she's badass of the kind of women that you remember from like those Vertigo books, and from we have a few in Stray Bullets, and that like the men can't do that she'll do whatever it takes, to get to stay alive, and to ultimately, but we haven't gotten there yet, but hopefully get her revenge at some point. But yeah, she's brutal and beautiful.
That's cool. Here's a comment from the chat. The Absurd Report says, I honestly like Dan's approach, how he approached the storytelling. It's best to pull from pure imagination rather than letting already existing pieces of media influence your writing. Absolutely. No, I know, talking to people like my buddy Tim Steele, who created Hack Slash, he didn't watch Buffy for years because he didn't want because that was another, Hack Slash was another Monster Hunter book, young lady monster hunting. You don't want to be influenced by Buffy, so I get it, and I think that's smart.
Yeah, and one of the things about making video games, it's so much work, and you're creating so many characters and a living, breathing 3D world that players explore. And people will say to me, have you seen this show on Paramount and this show on Netflix and this and that? And there's times that the TV room, I won't turn the TV on for 4 months. And people are like, oh, you haven't seen this, you haven't seen that. It's like, we're creating this and that, we're creating this amazing world of American Caper. We've got a separate universe called A Better Paradise, where we had an audio fiction series, and we're working on a game that's set in that universe. And then a third universe called the Absurdiverse, where we've got a game and, animated series and such planned for that. And frankly, when I come home, I've got a pile of newspapers and New Yorkers and Atlantics and comic books. And if I'm not, I like going into printed media to get ideas rather than watching TV and film, because that's someone else's take on it. I'll read the New Yorker and have some weird story I'm reading and get an idea for something and be writing it down, or I'll start reading something and then suddenly I'm making notes. My brain's kicked off on what we should do for the next script. And I'll be texting Dan. I was like, I've got a great idea for what we can do for Orson on da da da. And he's like, you know what? That's fantastic. I'll do that on the first pass of the next script. And so it's, I'm sure David and Chris have the same thing of like, you're so busy creating worlds that you just don't have the time to surf through Netflix and Hulu and everything else and just watch hours of television every night. I mean, would you agree, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I get, I'll take a pause and sit down with my wife and watch something for maybe an hour if we're lucky a night, It's just so busy, like you said, creating and doing our own thing.
No question. Here, Alien Centipede wants us to talk about how the Charmer, how cool and nice the Charmer's grill is.
That's one for Laszlo there. Like one of the things that's really fun and funny, like we do try and do a lot of little details in the art, and Laszlo, and I guess Dan, or maybe it's all Laszlo, I don't know, is like a lot of very, very specific details of things like it's got to be a grill, it's got to be like this, kind of grill, and we make up the make and model, and it may have a history. I don't know. We may do a fake ad detailing the whole history of the grill. But it's fun.
So in Dan's original script for number 1, he has, you know, this weird masculine energy about fire and cooking, and it doesn't matter if it's a campfire or it's over the grill. You go to a party and all the men are standing around sort of throwing in their stupid opinions about how to cook flank steak correctly or whatever the hell, and while, you know, holding beers, like something out of a Fox cartoon. But the Orson, who has a much nicer house, is looking at William's dilapidated house, like what kind of grill is that? Then he's boasting about his grill, and we Dan and I have talked about these people that buy like $10,000 grills that have like a, you know, and then so Dan and I started coming up with these ideas like, oh, you can roast a pig on this side and do all this, and then we were like, well, we should do a fake ad for that, right? Yeah. Where it's just completely ridiculous. And then I wrote all of these different kinds of that you could cook with different styles, like different culinary styles. So, which I think one was like Vermont style that is like hairy and listens to fish. I don't know. Anyway,
Chris did a great job with that illustration. It must be said, that fake ad, I think if there was an award for fake ads, Chris, I think he would have taken the gold for that. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's one of the few things that's all me in it. So it was, you know, fun to put my little stamp on it. But just all the descriptions that you put, I was like, how am I going to fit all of this into this grill? I was like, well, let's just say like grilling is this person's world, and let's wrap it around an orb, like a, you know, earthly orb all the way to the horizon, and show the cow being taken apart in all kinds of ridiculous ways. And
but it's also really fun. It's also part of the theme of American Caper is that how the internet has made us compare our lives to everybody else. And, you know, on Instagram, you flip through and like, oh, there's a person having a much better time than I am, and they're on another great vacation. And men, you know, are always sort of trying to one up each other on their like, oh, I've got a great grilling technique and I bought this like fancy grill for. So in the first issue, to have these guys who are, you know, Orson sort of like one upping, like, oh, you should come over. I've got this, you know, super expensive grill that I bought. So I'm glad people are enjoying that.
The detail to the illustrations too, Chris, it again, you'll forgive the comparisons to other books. It reminds me of everything they were doing from an art standpoint in Top 10, that great book that you know, Gene Ha and Alan Moore and everybody, you know, put together. But yeah, all the billboards and like everything that Laszlo described in terms of, you know, building the environment, the kind of stuff that you did in Grand Theft Auto and stuff. And it's right there in American Caper, everybody. It's that kind of great. You're going to spend a lot of time on the art, looking at the various little things that Chris and David are putting in there. And Lee, of course, coloring it all.
It must be said that the page count, if you're not coming back to American Caper every month because you can count on it, because we are working on issue 11, as long as we can let David Lapham leave in a few minutes, he'll be going right back to issue 11 to do thumbs. But you get extra story and art pages, and that's huge. There are at least 26 story and art pages in each issue of American Caper, and sometimes more, because depending on how we want the pacing and how we have the page turns set up and how we've asked David to create these amazing montage pages as a leitmotif or double page spread pages, we've put fake ads in to not only make sure the pacing is correct, but like Laszlo said, he and Dan were great world builders with GTA, and they had all of these worlds within worlds, and fans love Easter eggs. So everything is integrated. Nothing is arbitrary in this book. And I think that's another reason to come back for it. Also, and I don't mind putting this down live, one of the reasons I joined this book and I stayed with this book is the way that Dan and Laszlo write their characters. We've got so many strong female characters, but we also have male characters that cry a lot. I've already mentioned the nudity, and it's not female nudity. We've got some male nudity. I wasn't looking for it, but I got to be honest
Not
with
only
you.
is it not female nudity, it's not pleasant nudity.
I didn't expect it. I
Really?
didn't expect this kind of nudity to be written in by gaming writers. I thought I was going to actually have to like start cracking some skulls and talking about how maybe there's too much female nudity, and I was expecting something very different. So when I joined the team, I was all in because of the respect, and they write really strong characters, especially female characters.
That's excellent. Mentioning the other back matter, Carrie says, that's awesome. I love behind the scenes stuff. Scripts are something I've been starting to collect. And then the Absurd Report says, I actually know people like Orson, folks whose lives are so thin on the real substance that they latch onto one material thing and make it their entire personality. And like Orson, they talk about that one possession nonstop because it distracts from the fact that there's nothing else going on beyond the surface. Absolutely, man. And
yeah, because we for whatever reason, we live in an age where you don't have to go wash your clothes down by the river on a washboard. I mean, we have pretty cushy lives, but everybody seems to be completely miserable. And we've taken that idea and the satire of that in American Caper, and with Marty, he's got everything, but like deep down he's sort of miserable because he wants to live forever, as much as he's sort of crazy and out there, and I just love exploring these characters and also getting into the heart of what we as a consumer society like GTA did this a lot. We have this idea that, oh, there's a thing, I just got served up an ad on Instagram and Facebook and if I buy that, I'll be happy. And I have friends that like Amazon is parking a truck out front every hour, and it's just like, I'll buy that thing, and that will finally make me happy.
It'll fill the void.
And so we've got this William's daughter who's
protester,
and she's into sort of yoga and Zen, but it's like not really working. She's like super mad and angry, and it's the algorithm of the internet, and having been on the internet since the very early days in the late 70s to today. And I remember doing a report when Facebook launched, and I said, this is a terrible idea. This is going to be a mess. Is that like, I go back to the monetized misery. All of that is done to keep us glued to YouTube, glued to Instagram, glued to our phones, because they are monetizing our brains. And so, and that plus the sort of religious through line and people thinking I'm doing this for God, is interesting. And like, I'm glad you brought up Eva, because she's a character completely outside of all this madness. So, and who's escaping her own misery and is happy cleaning toilets because
and how about our cover artist, Tyler Boss?
Put it back up. Here we go.
On the first cover.
Yeah, Tyler. So as a longtime comic fan, I was nervous about the covers, in that do we have to have them all look there's some amazing series that the covers all have a very similar theme, and working with Tyler and chatting with Dan about the through line of it, we wanted to mix things up, and so his cover for number 2 is way different from number 1, and so, but we found sort of a rhythm, and his cover for number 2, we're bringing back that theme for number 6, and so it's I love what like Beneath the Trees has done with their variant covers, and we've got some covers coming up that are wildly different from anything else that you've seen, and we're curious on exploring other art styles and homages to things like Norman Rockwell and famous old paintings and things like that. So this has been a journey, and Chris and David and Shelley have taken Dan and I on this journey, and we really hope that people enjoy the book.
That's great. Well, the cover's the front door, and it's really important to have a striking cover.
I think that reflects the series. I mean, one of the things you think of a caper is obviously it's a crime caper, but it's sort of a cacophony of all these different elements, and usually a lot of things going wrong, and that's very much the theme of the series, and it does reflect America and this whole culture and everything, but it's sort of like it's not with any sort of agenda. It just presents these characters in the world, and carries them to where the world takes them, whatever that is.
A lot of comments here from the Absurd Report. He really gets, or she, I'm not sure, gets what you're talking about. Another thing I really appreciate is how Dan calls out the absurdities of both the left and the right. He highlights that even when you think you're not picking a side, continued,
you are
still taking a position by default. We fight for what we believe are good intentions, but it's worth questioning whether those intentions are really as noble as we feel justified, as we justify telling ourselves. Yeah, absolutely, man. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think good satire, and we always worked hard to do this. When you're satirizing America in Miami, Los Angeles, New York, all of those places that we spent years satirizing modern day or the 80s or the 90s, you have to skewer both sides with equal enthusiasm.
Agreed.
And it's some of the funniest moments when we were going through comments on our work was we would make fun. The radio in Grand Theft Auto, we always had a left-wing station and a right-wing station. And we would get people that were really upset at how we spoofed NPR, but because they were leftist.
Sure.
But they loved our spoof of right-wing radio. And we would get that from both sides. I'm like, we've done it successfully. Like everybody needs to be checked, and absolutely. That's what's great about the wide character set that Dan's put together on this, and that Chris and David and Shelley have helped us develop, is that we are skewering multiple places and multiple kinds of people, and it's a story with people from Mexico, from people that have escaped from prison, lawyers from Brooklyn, and locals from Wyoming. And so it's, I think that one of the tough things is as we get to the end, close to 12, and David and Shelley and I have been having these conversations, there were people that we were like, well, this person's certainly getting murdered. They're despicable. But then the
ensemble cast can grow and grow and grow, and it's important, I think, that you got to get rid of some of these people and fast, or else it just really gets a little.
And we do. Yeah. It's but there's characters that you're like, you know what? There's a redemption moment here where they can find, like, I'm on the wrong path. And they could be reunited with their family, or reunited with their God, or reunited with this or that, or they turn themselves around.
I vote for reuniting them with their God.
Well, that's what's
No,
that's
I
great.
understand what you're saying.
That's what's
Well,
great
I think,
about
I
doing
think
this.
the thing is that ultimately, like, you can't force you can't force your characters into the plot. So you
Sure.
think when you start out, you have a plan. I think this is where this is going to end up. But when you get there, the character may have taken an unexpected turn, and that's not where they end up. And you have to be open to all of that.
But we certainly, at David's recommendation and Shelley, there's a lot of people getting murdered, and there seems to be a dead animal in every issue. I think. I mean, the front cover has got a bison that's been hit by a van or something.
I just got back from a long trip to from Minnesota, where I'm from, and was working up in the woods there. And I was telling David, I said, God, there's roadkill all over here. I've been taking lots of pictures. And he said, well, are there any turkeys? Because that's what's coming up next. And then I walked out the front door, and there were about 40 turkeys in the front yard. So.
There you go. Hilarious.
I knew I hired the right people for the job.
Clearly.
That's the number one skill that the editor has from the beginning. Hire the right people for the job, and then make sure that they show up and deliver the goods in spades. And let me tell you, that happens every month on American Caper.
I've always trusted your eye and your taste, Shell, and I don't think this group has disappointed in any way. American Caper, again, based on the 2 issues that I got to read, I'm very impressed. It is a great layered story. There's a lot going on, and again, that's what you want. You listen. As we all know, the cover price of a comic book is not cheap these days. So you really want your bang for your buck, and you are going to get that. And this is not, as Jim Steranko is well known for saying, I want to be able to take a comic book to the bathroom and actually still have to read it before I'm done with my business. And it's like, that's the hallmark of a good comic book. And I think you're going to get that in American. a lot of, and I mean that in the best light possible, putting a bathroom reference on it. So that's great, guys.
Well, thank you, John, and thanks, Shelley and David and Chris, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
And thanks also to Nate Picos, our letterer, for Blambot, and all the variant cover artists who have been a big part of American Caper so far. Cool. Joe Quinones, Marguerite Savange, Simon Bisley, of course, we mentioned. He's coming back and has quite a few variant covers. And we've got some other superstars that we'll be announcing in the months to come.
Excellent.
So stick with us, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. John, always the host with the most. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. I get out of the way and let you guys tell your stories, and that's great. And you guys really, honestly, I think you put together a nice production, and it's really exciting to get people coming in like Laszlo that are comic book fans, and Chris, that can sit with the vets and give us something different and something new. And I think that's what people will find from American Caper. Again, Dark Horse facilitates the project. I'm sorry, Laszlo, give me the name of your company again.
Absurd Ventures.
Absurd Ventures, everybody. Yeah. So again, these people are Rockstar. Damn it! I suck at video games, Laszlo. You'll forgive me. You came from Rockstar, right?
Yeah, Rockstar alumni.
Okay.
So,
yeah, but Absurd's the new company and everything. And listen, it's this is worth seeing and worth checking out. Everybody, Understands Now. It came out yesterday on Wednesday, so check it out. But thanks, guys. Great conversation, and truly, I'm thrilled to let everybody know about it. Pete Shine agrees. Cool stuff.
Thank you.
So excellent.
Oh, Pete
Thank you.
Shima. I love that guy.
Oh, I beg your pardon. When I see I got short eyeballs, so I'll probably say his name wrong. I apologize, Pete. But all right, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. I believe Philip Kennedy Johnson will be joining me next week because he's coming to Chicago and he's going to tell us about that. But he's killing it on the Hulk and he's killing it on Batman and Robin. And his wonderful work as well on Superman. We'll be talking about all that and more next Monday on Word Balloon Live. I hope you'll join us live for that. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.